the first Mishnah remember this Mishnah is a bit of a transition Mishnah to the theme of Avelis, which is really the topic of Allah, the third parak. So the first Mishnah talked about a person who had set up his olives in the olive press, and he couldn't finish it because he became an Avel, or something happened, or the workers didn't show up, and now it's Yontif, okay? Or and so forth. So there's a machlokas between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yosef about whether he can, in the case of the Zaytim, he puts on the first beam, which begins the press, and he lets it just work its way through. And then Rabbi Yossi says no, he can actually do the whole thing, and he puts in the Beit Abad, and he finishes until he gets everything as it is. And a similar kind of thing we have in this Mishnah, only the names the order is inverted, but you see Rabbi Yossi is more of a makil person when it comes to an issue of hefsed, whereas Rabbi Yehuda says even if there's a hefsed, you still have to do things with a shinui. You can't do it completely the way we'd want it to do. So this is the second Mishnah. So the first Mishnah dealt with zaytim, dealt with olives. This Mishnah talks about grapes. Okay, and you say, what's the difference between the two? There's a financial difference between the two, really, but otherwise it's a very similar kind of Mishnah. So that's the second Mishnah we're going to do. It's right on Yudbet on Aleph. V'chein mishahayeno b'toch habar. He has the grapes in the pit. No, they've already been trampled on, and the wine has already come out of the grapes. It's in this pit, and what needs to be done, they need to be, of course, run off into the barrel, and then cap the barrel and let them begin to ferment.
In the old days, you see in Israel, and they have some old archaeological. The way they did it in those days, they had a pit cut out of the stone,
right?
And they would trample it to squeeze it, and they would let it ferment in that same place.
Oh, right in the pit.
Because they didn't have so many things.
Right here.
They put straw.
Bavel, they were rich.
And then they would had a little opening. They put straw or wood or something, seal it, and at some point they'd open it up and let maybe the stems or the skins would stay, and the liquid would run off.
Right.
And it was all done in one. And then they would have watchmen and everything because maybe they didn't want stam yoinim or whatever. People would steal it or whatever. They would have watchmen there. And it was all one thing, and then they take it off, put it into whatever.
Correct, but each thing takes time.
Eventually they have to store
it. Yeah, it takes time. But today you have one place for crushing, and then you put it in a barrel, you put it in a tank, and you have all these other things. Those days all done in one spot.
More importantly, it was done outdoors.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. I think in Tanakh it says it's covered and they had watchmen.
No problem. It is. Sure.
So therefore says the Mishnah, V'chein misha yeno b'toch habar. So the wine or the grape juice is already in the pit. It's already been trampled down, and the wine has now come out. I believe they used to trample it in one place, and it would go into the bar, and it would sit there. Okay. The iro avel o ones o shitu polim. The same thing as the previous Mishnah. He was not able to complete it because he became an avel, or something else happened, or the workers didn't show up, and they tricked him. And if he doesn't take the wine and cap it into and put it into a barrel and close it, the wine as it's sitting will begin to ferment poorly, begin to go bad, become vinegar. So we have the two opinions. One opinion, zoleif. Zoleif means you kind of pour out the wine from the pit, and this is Chol Moed we're talking about, the gomer, and you finish off everything. In other words, if there's still grapes that have to be trampled on, and whatever it is, you finish it all, and you put it all into the barrels. The gaf, you kind of put the bung on it, you put the cork on it, or however they sealed it. Kedarko, like you normally did. Who says this? Divrei Rabbi Yossi.
Why wouldn't you say that? Like, what would be the hefkamina, the other side? Wouldn't it be a hefsed meruba? Like, wouldn't you lose a lot of money?
To go to vinegars. That's what it is.
So which is the next one? Which is Rabbi Yehuda Omer? You kind of build it and you do something that you can keep the wine stored, but it's not completely sealed, but it's sealed enough that, or you keep it in the pit where it's sealed and covered with boards, that it's not going to become.
You're allowed to do something to stop it from turning into vomit.
And only after Yontiv is over do you then actually tank it into the barrels. So in other words,
the minimum. You do the minimum.
You do the minimum, and according to the second opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, you're putting into a format that is not going to become chometz, it won't become vinegar, but you're still doing it in an unusual way, and you're not capping it completely. Okay, so. But you see that it's the same achlokas with Zaytim as is with Yayin, and Rabbi Yossi is the opinion that says when there's a hefs meruba you can do everything, and Rabbi Yehuda says no, you have to still do a shinoi. Okay, that's a fundamental machlokas.
Rabbi Yehuda though seems to be saying you're not going to lose everything. It might be a little bit more expensive and a little bit more trouble, clearly, to do it after, but you're not really going to lose everything.
There won't be any substantial loss.
Won't be a substantial.
Right. And Rabbi Yossi says, well, once you already got to work, once you got to do it,
do it the right way.
Do it the way it normally would be.
Once it goes to vinegar, it can't go back.
Both agree it's not going to become vinegar. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's a lot more laborious work. You got to cover it to keep it out of the sun, and then come back after the Yontiv and finish off the work. So there might be additional expenses. Maybe you need twice as many workers.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Gemara says that we need both cases. Obviously, the question is, why do we need the first mission which dealt with Zaytim, and this deals with Yayim? The Yashmin and Kamaita, if we only had the first case which dealt with wine, Bahi Kam Rabbi Yossi, in that case Rabbi Yossi would say you can completely put it into barrels for olive oil. Mishum the Meshicha Nafesh Pseida. The Mishcha Nafesh Pseida. Mishcha is olive oil. Oil is very expensive. Now you may think that wine is more expensive than oil, but oil was a greater commodity and required.
It's harder to make.
It's harder to make. It's probably harder to keep as well. It'll go rancid.
Maybe, but you don't get much from olives. Like you don't get a lot of oil.
You're squeezing an olive. I
don't know what you get.
To a grape.
But you get a few drops. You don't get like gallons.
I don't know.
Whatever it is all liquid, but an
oil is
all
much more
solids,
useful, I assure you, and much more necessary, and much more.
Right, but the loss would be greater.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's what they feel. With wine, which was not as great a loss, I would think maybe Rabbi Yossi would not require or allow you to do the full amount, right? And would say, Rabbi Yehuda, you can only cover it or prepare it or a little bit, right? So what about the second? So I have the first one. What about the second one? If I only had the second one, by he come Rabbi Yehuda, I would say in that case, where there's less of a loss, Rabbi Yehuda says I don't do the full amount. But in the first case, which has the wine, I would say maybe Rabbi Yehuda would agree to Rabbi Yossi. Therefore, the two Mishnais have to give us the two cases, one that they both agree. Okay. So it's really the same machloket. There's no great chiddush one from the other, except the financial loss could be greater for olive oil. And then the Gemara says, Am Rabbi Yitzchak bar Abba, Man tana shinoi b'moed b'davra avid, whose opinion is that when you have a davra avid, you have a loss, a substantial loss, you have to make a shinoi, right? You have to change it on Chol Moed. Whose opinion is it? Look, Rabbi Yossi. It's not Rabbi Yossi's opinion, right? It's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion.
Seems to be.
Right? So Rabbi Yossi says you don't have to make a shinoi at all. Okay, so it's just giving us the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, which applies in many cases throughout Chol Moed. And we even have the halacha of Rabbi Yosef, halacha Rabbi Yossi. The halacha is like Rabbi Yossi that says you can do the whole shebang. Do it like normally. You don't have to have shinoi if there's a davar of it.
Is that in general the halacha l'maisa?
Yeah, that's a halacha l'maisa for Chol Moed.
Okay.
Right. Now, let's stay with this because Gemara is going to say it's very hard to extrapolate klalim rules for Chol Moed. I see this in 1 minute. Normally, normally the way the Gemara is, you have examples, and you bring out a rule that you can apply to other places. The Gemara is going to say that doesn't always work in Chol Moed. Chol Moed seems to be somewhat random or somewhat just unusual kinds of things. And that's what makes Chol Moed so difficult really to kind of plow through. So now the Gemara has one more case.
Rabbi Yosef.
Okay. Boimene me Rav Yosef. Boimene me Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Mahu lemesha chavita de shikra b'chol moada. Can you mesh us to I believe to cover those you have? Once again, the same kind of thing. We're not dealing here with wine, with grapes. We're dealing with shecher, which is beer. Okay. So you have fermenting wheat or barley, and you've got the liquid. Can you actually do the entire process? Lamesha means to actually cover up the chavit on Chol Moed.
Why would you think otherwise? It's a different substance.
Right. So the Gemara says, Amalahu. So Rav Nachman answered him and said, Sinai Amar Halacha Rav Yosef. We just said that Rav Yosef, who is called many times Sinai in the
wow.
Right? There's a Sinai in Oka Harim. Sinai because he remembered everything. He had a clear memory. So he remembered everything like with Sinai. So Rav Yosef already just told us Halacha is like Rav Yosef. So what do you ask me the question? So the Gemara says, Dam Rabbi Yossi b'chamra. Maybe Rabbi Yossi says you can do it without a shina with chemar, which is wine. B'shikra mi amar. But who says he says you can do it with beer? Right? Chamra time amai. What's the reason for wine? Mishum denafish tzeda. That's really a lot of loss. So it's not as much loss as oil.
Right.
But wine requires a certain amount of care in terms of the process. It's more expensive, correct? So even
once a year. It's also once a year.
Right. Someone told me they went to the guy who's brewing the kettle and whatever it is. So he said you can get beer in a couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. And wine has to sit for 6 months.
Yeah.
So it's a ganzamaisa.
The common people
once a year.
The common people all over the ancient world drank beer. That's like the first thing.
Beer can make anything.
Wouldn't they have drunk wine instead of water?
That's compared to water. But I'm saying beer was the ordinary worker or whoever you want. I don't mean just Jewish people. I'm talking about all over.
The advantage of wine, or the origins of wine being an alcoholic beverage, is the grape skin has the actual fermenting fungus on it. Right? It's a natural occurring thing. So you need to add nothing else. Beer and other alcoholic beverages, you need to put a yeast in to begin the process. Right, and the other stuff. So at any rate, so who says? So maybe he says only for yayin.
Right.
But shikra.
Maybe not.
Right, but shikra nami isle.
B'shikra mi amar.
Right, b'shikra mi amar. So Gemara says, well, why not? Chamra tamamai. What's the reason for wine? Mishum denafish pseida. Shikra nami isle pseida. There's also a loss for beer. Okay, so the Gemara says, Diom Rabbi, Amrali, my mother told me. It really was when Rabbi refers to his mother, it's not his mother. Rabbi's mother died when he was young. He was raised by a nursemaid, and she took care of him. And when he says my mother, he's referring to this woman. That's why she's nameless, so to speak. So Abaye says, this is what I learned. This is what my nanny told me. Your nanny's telling him how to drink. It says, Barshit sai v'shia, mi bar timne v'loshia. It's better to buy 6 saws, let's say $6 worth of beer that's been capped, rather than buying $8 worth of beer that's been uncapped. In other words, the quality will be higher if it's been sealed. Which means if you leave it open,
there'll be a loss.
There'll be a loss.
Right?
Right.
Okay. Also.
It'll turn to vinegar as well. So in other words, the Gemara seems to ask the question. Therefore, the Gemara says, that there really should be no difference. Between wine and beer. And if Rabbi Yossi would say for one, there's a loss, and therefore you have to cap it. So it should be the same thing for shecher as well. Yes, it's a quicker process. It looks like it's not as much hefsid, but it is. If you don't cap it, it can go sour as well. So the Gemara simply leaves this with the rhetorical question that looks like the halacha is going to be like Rabbi Yossi. The question that's being asked Rav Nachman Yitzchak is really a non-question. And as the Gemara responds, says, well, we just learned halachas like Rabbi Yossi. He'll be everywhere. You think it's because of hefsid? There's hefsid as well with sheikhar. But the bottom line is, halacha is going to be like Rabbi Yossi, and therefore if there's a loss, you can do it correctly and properly as you would normally do it during a weekday.
You'd bet
Amud Aleph, we're about 4 lines to the bottom.
Right?
Okay, so now Amarav Chama Bar Guraya Amarav, or Gurya Amarav. And this is what I told you about. It's hard to extrapolate rules. Hilchos Moed ki Hilchos Kutim Bahalacha. Okay, now the halachas of Chol Moed are like the halachas of Kutim. Now, who are the Kutim?
The Kutim are those people up there. Weren't they the
Shomronim?
The Shomronim, exactly.
Right. So, they converted. So here's what we know about the Kutim. They are the people that were transplanted by Nebuchadnezzar into Eretz Yisrael when we were exiled, and we find that initially they were attacked by lions and other things, and therefore they Judaized and they accepted HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But when we come back, there's all kinds of problems, by the way. We say for Ezra. But having said that, they seem to assimilate into and live with the Jewish community after a while.
Well, it makes sense. I mean,
right? And they never seem to kind of just get wiped out. So you have a number of cases where Chazal referred to the Kutim, and they're never quite sure if they're keeping the halachas. They seem to have chosen certain laws which they kept completely, and certain which they kind of chose not to do at all.
So why can't you just make if he keeps the law, he doesn't, he's not.
That's correct.
Why can't you just make
so when it comes
keeping
exactly.
So then you assume he does keep it. Why do you?
Correct. So that's what they did. They assumed they did until they found that they were not keeping certain laws.
Do something else. Then get rid of them or treat them differently.
So it's not getting rid of them. The question. So for example, if you knew.
Going to marry with them. You know what I mean?
It's not been into marrying. No. If you knew that they were keeping a high level of kashrut, you could eat their food.
Okay.
Right?
Well,
but if you find one
second. If you go to somebody who keeps a high level of kashrut, he doesn't keep Shabbos. Some people say don't eat in the guy's house.
Because what we know today is people who we know that there's the breakdown of their trustworthiness because they break one, they may break the other.
Same with this.
So that's the difference. Apparently, they chose certain things that they were very meticulous, and certain things they didn't accept. Remember, this is a group that joined into
that's not our rules. Our rules is you do it or you don't do it.
So in those, as you go through history, you find that Chazal become to trust them less and less. But here's what they know about them is there are some things they accept, some things they don't, and it's not logical. It's not logical. Like you could argue and say, well, this person is going to keep Shabbos, or not keep Shabbos, but they keep kashrut.
Absolutely.
Okay? You could say, well, I know that's consistent. And here you would find with the Kutim, they would keep some laws of kashrut, some laws they wouldn't keep. And it makes no sense.
But
so
there must have been a Lahavdil, and even Yoshka's, like whatever, his writings there, whatever. Remember he talks about the Samaritans. These are the Shomronim.
That's right.
And it's clear from that text that the Jews didn't like the Shomronim.
By the time of the end of the second they didn't believe them, and they believed in them at all.
Exactly.
But in an earlier era, right?
Didn't trust them.
Right.
I'm saying it's clear that the Jews.
In an earlier era, they actually believed that they were followers of one God.
Yes.
Until they finally discovered in their temple that they had certain images.
We're the people now who still aren't higher,
Mount Gerizim,
It's these people.
These are these people. No, not Karaites, Shomronim.
No, Shomronim. They claim to have some sort of a Torah of some kind.
Right. Yeah.
They claim, I don't know, it's the whatever.
So it goes back to these. But I'm saying once again, but their traditions are different.
Yeah, they're still there.
So, and whatever their traditions are, but the bottom line is, the reason this is brought here is because Chazal had this rule that whenever the Kutim kept something, they could rely upon them. In fact, there was many cases about Tumah and Tahar as well. And where they didn't, they couldn't rely upon them. Consistently, there was no consistency. So the Gemara says that's the same thing when it comes to halachas of Chol Moed.
Meaning it's like sometimes it's yes and sometimes it's no.
Yes, sometimes it's no. Normally you when you look at the Torah, you can take the rule, the example, and say I can find the rule, and the rule is going to work all across the board. Here there's going to be like the Kutim, sometimes yes, sometimes not, sometimes this, sometimes that. Okay? So in other words, all the Gemara is throwing in here, and sometimes the Gemara has these rules they throw in the funniest of places. Here we are. This is the second Amud of the second parak, and they
just after we learned that everything is according to Rabbi Yossi.
Right, and they say, guess what? But you know what? All that you've been learning now about Chol Hamoed, there's really no rule. Okay, it's hard to find the rule because it's like the Kutim. So. And the Gemara says, Lamai Hilchasa, what does that really mean? What's the implications? Amrav Daniel Bar Katina, Amrav, Lo Mashen, Akuros Vein Lameda Zumizu. Akuros means they're barren. Like, in other words, like a woman who can't give birth, who's sterile. And therefore, which means she will never have anything, the genetic makeup that will come from her.
Right.
So it's a deadly end. It's a singular person. So the same thing. Each halacha has to be studied as a separate halacha. So akuros vein lemeda zumizu. Okay. All right. Now, but having said that, we're going to try to learn other kinds of things as well. And therefore, we have to ask these different kinds of cases that are very similar to what we were, because you can't really apply one to the other. Okay. So the Gemara says, the Amar Shmuel, you'll see. So here's an example where you see how different they are. Zoftin kusta, vein zoftin chavita. Zoftin is once again covering the barrel. Now, a kusta is a type of jug. It's a clay jug. So Shmuel says that you can cover and close completely on Chol Hamoed this clay jug, vein zoftin chavita, but you cannot close a wooden barrel. Right? Then Rav Dima Mar Nado Mar zoftin chavita vein zoftin kusta. He says the other way around. No, you have to cover the barrel. It's a greater amount, larger thing, and you cannot cover the kusta because it's too much work.
Is it the outside? Do you know? Is it the outside or the inside? I'm just asking.
I don't know.
I'm just asking. I'm just curious.
The outside of the barrel or the outside of the...
No, the outside of the
barrel?
Outside
You're covering these barrels with these jugs. Outside or inside? I'm just asking.
I believe it's outside.
So you cover it so it doesn't leak, I assume, but the air doesn't get in or something.
Oh, I see.
So maybe cover the outside. Cover the outside.
So Zoftin may actually be putting like a lining.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe it's a lining on the inside.
The way you thought on the inside.
No, I don't know. It could be either.
It might be on the inside.
Especially with a word like Zof.
Yeah, it's probably the inside. Okay. So in other words, whatever is both items are porous.
Right.
Clay, which is more porous? Clay is more porous, I believe.
Suspect so.
Wed Jul. He used to have these wine jugs. He said
we're no experts.
I don't know that. He said these wine jugs are pointed at the bottom and they came up like this with two handles on them.
Absolutely.
That was the that's where they stored wine in. Like they found hundreds of them and it was interesting.
Right. So what's the reason? So mar chaysh l'pseida or mar chaysh l'tircha. So why are there two opposing opinions? So one opinion is more concerned for a loss, which would be the loss. The loss would be, I believe, the bigger barrel.
Either one, whichever it is. Yeah, probably.
Right. And the other one says no, you can.
And the other one's worried about.
One's tircha, and there's more tircha in.
Well,
there's less tircha with the jug,
right?
And there's more tircha with the chavit.
You would think so.
So therefore, if you're worried about tircha, you should be able to cover the chavit.
Technically, it sounds like the bigger barrel is the bigger loss and the more work.
Yeah.
Who knows? We don't know.
The opening size. Who knows?
One is more loss, and one is more.
Clearly, whichever it is, we've got it to be.
But in other words, you see, you've got two opposing opinions. How's this possible? Because you can't extrapolate a rule. And one guy says you have to choose the value of loss, and one says you choose the value of tircha. So how do you know how to work it out? So that's what we're trying to make you aware of how difficult it is to find the klalim that exist in the laws of Chol Hamoed. Okay. Amar Rabbi, Naktina Hilchas Moed Hilchas Shabbos. That we'll have a rule that the laws of Chol Hamoed are like the laws of Shabbos, which means as follows. This is even more complicated. Yesh me'em poter avalasar, v'yesh me'em mutar l'chadchila. When it says you can't do something, right? So, for example, it's referring specifically to this Bryce or this Machlokas, Rav Dimi and Abaye, who says Zoftin. It says you can zoftin, let's say the stuff, but you can't zoftin the chavita. When it says you can't be zoftin the chavita, it doesn't mean that it's asim in Torah. It means you can't do it rabbinically, but if you did it, you're not chayiv. Okay. So and when the person says yes zoftin, it means zoftin lechatchila.
Right.
So in other words, in the same way that when you have laws of Shabbos, there's asur, there's chayav, there's asur, and there's mutar. So chayav means it's prohibited min Torah for Shabbos. Asur means it's prohibited rabbinically, but there's no punishment. And mutar, of course, means mutar permissible. Okay. All is trying to show you that it's hard to kind of extrapolate the rules of Chol Hamoed. So anytime you study the laws of Chol Hamoed, just case by case by case by case. Okay, now we got another case. So what we're talking about now, we're talking about trying to cover the barrel to prevent the loss from occurring.
Right.
So here's a case, real stories, some true stories from famous people. Rav Huna, Chatzule Chatzta b'Moada. Rav Huna, they harvested his crops on Chol Hamoed. Okay, now that sounds pretty sketchy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right now,
what was the store on Chol Hamoed?
Right. This is actually going out to harvest. So what could be possibly the reason? So could it be Davar, but it's going to be a loss? Possibly, but you'll see in a moment that if something is still growing, Davar may not apply.
Yeah, we're only talking about a few days here. We're not talking about like
he wouldn't know the hailstorm coming. He would know that, but he would not know that.
Well, look at the sky. They know.
Well, whatever it was, or the
hail would destroy everything.
But you're assuming it's just coming ripe. Maybe it's ripe, has become ripened.
It's rotting.
And if you don't do it now, it's going to lose it completely.
But
the bottom more like a field than a. This is not a
correct.
orchard.
They took a field. They harvested a field.
Barley or something.
So it's like barley. They went after barley.
4 days.
Correct. Okay, yeah. So the Gemara asks a question. So wait, so this is not nobody. This is Rav Huna.
Absolutely. You better have a good reason.
Correct. And we're assuming that Rav Huna had enough to eat. That's not like he was starving. This thing was down to.
Well, that's clear.
Don't say yes. You must.
No, but if he was starving, he for sure could eat, right?
Correct. But we'll see in a little bit later. There was one individual, I believe Rav, who was starving.
But you don't have to harvest the whole field. You just harvest. Exactly. You harvest like a corner. A little bit you need.
That's how hungry you are.
Enough for the Chol Hamoed.
Yeah, exactly. Enough for Yontif.
Well, for Chol Hamoed and for Yontif.
Right, but you don't have to harvest the whole field.
All right.
I assume a field is bigger.
Well, we don't know how much they harvested, but we do know they went out to harvest. Okay. Eisvei. So Eisvei Rav Huna.
Eisvei is not like Meisvei. What's Eisvei?
It's Meisvei. It's a question.
Oh, it's like Meisvei.
So Rabbi Rav Huna asked Rav Huna.
Right.
Okay. The Brisa says as follows: Tochanim kemach b'moed l'tzorach hamoed. You can grind flour on Chol Hamoed if you're going to use it for Chol Hamoed. V'shelo l'tzorach hamoed aser. But if you're not going to use it for Chol Hamoed, you can't grind the flour.
Right. You can't grind it for Yontif?
Means and Yontif. Chol Hamoed and Yontif. Yeah. In other words, as opposed to trying to grind for the next month. So davar ha'avad mutar lasota b'moed. Davar she'eno avad b'moed aser. Okay, so because the rule is, and next thing is, if it's going to be a davar avad, so then you can do it a Chol Hamoed. If it's not a davar avad, you can't do it a Chol Hamoed. However, there's an important clause. When do we say davar avad is permissible in Chol Hamoed? Betlushim in a karka, when it's cut off, when it's separated from the ground. Then, if you don't process it, if it becomes a loss, then it's permissible. But if it's attached to the ground, we don't say davar of it is going to be permissible. Okay? Now, so this sounds like it's going to be a very big question on Rav Huna.
It also sounds like, how could you make such a statement that just because the thing is growing, it couldn't be? Just like you said, let's say I saw it start at the hail, or let's say...
But you wouldn't know.
Locusts. No, let's say locusts were going to start at the hail.
Whatever it is, you make an assessment as to either going to be davar of it or not.
No, but here, did I understand? Afilu kulo avud usher. It sounded, if the thing is growing, even if you're going to lose the whole thing, is that what that means?
That's correct.
You still can't do it.
Correct, because that was considered an even greater amount of tircha in other words, to kind of process something has been cut. Now you have to cut it and process it.
Right.
So that's super work. So not every davar avad is going to be, not everything is going to be trumped by davar avad. Sometimes too much tircha is going to be the trump. V'im ein lo ma she'ochal, or ma yochal, if you have nothing to eat, that's a serious problem. Kotzer u'ma'amer v'dosh v'zor bo v'tochen. Then you can do everything. You can cut, and ma'amers pile up, and dashes to you're stamping on it. Zora is you're winnowing it up in the air. Bora is then you're separating it. And tochen is you're grinding it. You can do anything if you have no food. Ubavad shlo yadush paparos.
So there is a little exception.
However, provided you don't use cows, oxen, to do this work. Right. So in other words, it looks like everything is okay if you're starving, but you still can't use oxen.
You use yourself, so that's like
why can't you? Well, correct. So the question, so Gemara is going to ask why you can't use oxen.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, you can't use oxen, you have to use your hands. There's going to be more work, I would think.
So the Gemara will explain why you can use oxen a little bit later.
Ladush is to like threshing, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Ladush is to thresh.
Separate the straw from the grain.
Ladush is to jump on it. Is to
separate it.
Ladush is you're the pounding down, and Zora is you're throwing it up in the air.
You break the
threshing and woodwork. Okay. So in other words, here's the rule. So the rules that come out of this brisa are that davar avad does not work when it comes to mechubar,
right?
Correct?
Right.
And when it's still growing in mechubar, it's connected. And when we say you can do everything, you can't use the cows, okay, for some reason. So this was a question. Who are they asking the question to? Rav Huna. How did you harvest your crop?
Absolutely.
Right? And we're assuming that Rav Huna was not in the stage where he had nothing to eat.
Right.
So the Gemara gives an answer. Amalei, Rav Huna gives an answer. Yichidaihi. This brisa you just quoted me, that has the rules or the caveats about what I can do and what I can't do, is an individual opinion. It's not the opinion of everyone. V'lo sfir lan kavasim. We don't follow that. The Tanya, that we have another brisa that seems to say the same thing. Klal Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Mishum Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel said name Rabbi Yossi. Davra talish min akarka al fil mikzas al avad mutar. V'machum al akarka al fil kula avad asur.
So now we're me.
So now we've associated this with whom?
Well, even with
one opinion. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel named Rabbi Yossi.
Yeah, but Rabbi Yossi, so far, we've learned is absolutely mekel in general.
So,
right?
Correct. So he's going to say...
This is a baraisa on top of the previous one.
Right.
So are we saying that the first part we read, which Huna says, oh, that's an individual, this baraita presumably
what
is
we're
that
saying
individual.
is we're saying Rabbi Yossi, which allows you to do all kinds of hard work.
Right. It says you
can't use this if it's still connected. Right?
Clearly.
And now comes Rav Huna to say that I follow Rabbi Yossi, but I don't follow him to the extent that I can't do this if it's still connected to the ground.
I'm saying the implication is, though, that earlier, before we got this baraita, the first part, which was anonymous, it didn't say who said it, right? Rav Huna's taking the attitude that wasn't just well known, it was really Rabbi Yossi's opinion.
Or Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, correct. Right. And therefore I follow an even greater kula, that I can if it's a davar avad, I can cut down even attached produce.
Right.
So in other words, and because this brisa which you asked the question of me is really the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, which looks like it's makil, but it stops short of being the most makil, and it's therefore shita yichida.
Right.
Okay, so at any rate, so this is how he answers it, which means what he's really saying, what the Gemara is really leading up to here, is saying when there's a davar avod,
doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter if it's attached. Davar avod trumps everything. If it's going to be a loss, I can even cut it down. And the brisa says I can't cut it if it's attached. That's only Rabbi Yossi.
Of course, how do we know Rav Huna? So far, I only heard Rav Huna said this. Maybe he's also a yachid. Maybe I don't know who he's quoting, but that's a separate.
He doesn't tell us who he's quoting.
Exactly.
But no, this is how he felt that he had other brises to support that allowed even when it's Mekubal Karka.
Sure.
Okay. Now here's the sidebar question about the parot.
Right.
So Gemara says, okay, so Rabbi Yossi allows us to do all kinds of work.
Absolutely.
If it's detached.
Right.
The only thing that you can't do is if it's attached.
Right.
So the Gemara says, according to Rabbi Yossi, you can do everything. And we just learned in our Mishnah about Rabbi Yossi for the wine.
Right.
We learned the previous mission about Rabbi Yossi's 18. Everything goes. So the Gemara says this is the same Rabbi Yossi.
Absolutely.
His only caveat is about if it's attached, but if it's unattached, and the example that we have of the unattached is where the guy has nothing to eat, so he can
sure.
Right, he can cut,
right,
and the only thing he can't use the parot. The Gemara says,
yes.
Rabbi Yossi, Yadush Nami b'parot.
Exactly.
Let him also use the oxen. Why? Because Rabbi Yitzchak Barabba, Man Tana Shina b'Moed b'Davar Avad Lok Rabbi Yossi. Because we have the rule that when it comes to making a shinoi with Davar Avad, Rabbi Yossi says you don't have to do it as it is. So would you not say that using oxen is the normal way in which they did things?
Absolutely.
Why can you not use oxen?
In fact, I'd even go further and say this proves that maybe Rav Huna wasn't right. Maybe the first statement was also for Rabbi, because why in the world would Rabbi Yossi not allowed the cows?
Okay. Right? Anyways, so the Gemara gives a funny kind of answer. The Gemara says, Amalacha, so Rav Huna can answer, Hachanami, really, you can do everything. And when he's saying if you're not following, you don't need a shinoi, kevan to b'chol yom alav b'parot daishe, huid nanami lav shinuhu. Every day, not everybody uses parot when it comes to the processing of the wheat. They did it by hand.
Well, it depends how much.
It depends on your station in life.
Yeah.
So in other words, now, but it doesn't really explain this. So Rashi says, here's what you have to understand it. So that Rashi says, let me first explain. I'll read you Rashi. Rashi says the reason why you can't use parot has nothing to do with a shinoi.
Okay.
The reason for parot is it makes too much noise. There's a concept of avsha milsa. That in other words, on Yontif or even Chalamoid, there's a spirit of the day that you don't want to impinge upon other people's simcha of the day. So the idea of a mill which makes a lot of noise, or the idea of parot, which I don't know, make a pounding noise, or they're pulling the wagon, or they're pulling the plow, or the thresher. So that's already too much of a big deal. Not because you have to have a shinoi. Really, everything goes. However, avsha milsa is something that you have to be concerned for other people as well. You have to respect their celebration of Chol Moed.
And that would be the logic behind Rabbi.
That's the logic why you can't use parot.
Yeah.
Now, that's what Rashi says. Rashi. It's about 6-7 lines on the top. Every day you also would thresh without parot. Rabbi Yossi it's really Rabbi Yossi. So why parot asar? Mishum the avsha milsa. It makes a lot of noise. It creates a sense of mundaneness.
Yeah.
Right. So it has nothing to do with breaking the normal order. It has nothing to do with shina. It has to do with what's called avsha milsa. Okay.
Would it be the same thing as uvda dechol?
So uvda dechol means you are becoming uvda dechol. Avsha milsa means that you're making so much noise you're impinging upon other people's celebration of their Chol Moed. No, for me it's fine. If I had parot and they put on slippers on them or something, or there was no one around, it would be okay. But the assumption is, if I'm going to do this, they're going to moo and they're going to be making noise with the wagon.
It's like a workaday world.
Right, and so therefore I, who don't have to go harvest because I have enough, I'm going to be impacted upon it by the noises there. It's like when you're outside and a helicopter goes by. Right? Helicopter has a reason, but still you get interrupted. Or you're under the flight path of a plane coming in for landing and there's low cloud cover. Okay, next case. All right, Amar Tan Rabbanan. Tochanim, but this is a long brayso that tells everything we're doing here. Tochanim b'moed l'tzorach moed, v'shelo l'tzorach moed aser. Okay, you can grind for moed, chol moed, because you're going to use it. If you're not going to use the grinded grain, you can't. V'im tochan v'hosir harei zemutar. If you ground and there's left over, you can use it. So I never know how many people are coming. So I really maybe only need 1 pound, 1 kilo of flour. But you know what? I make 3 because I want to make sure I have enough. That's okay. I can cut trees on Chol Moed for wood, because I have to make a fire on Chol Moed. But I can't use it for after Chol Moed. Once again, I cut the leftovers, permissible. Okay? Third case, similar case. Matilan shecher b'moed. I can make beer on chalamoed. L'tzarach hamoed, for chalamoed. Mishlo l'tzarach hamoed aser. Right? But I can't make it if it's not using it for chalamoed and yontiv. V'mehita b'hosir. Let's say I made leftover beer. Hareza mutar. That's permissible. Ubilvad shelo yarim. Provided I don't fool myself. What do I mean fool myself? Means I have cases of beer in my basement, and I say, well, I need to make some beer, and I'll make it for Cholamoid. I don't really need it. Right? That's tricking me. That's
with everything. With everything.
Correct, but apparently beer was more of an issue because beer could be stored.
No, you're right. 100%. You're saying, why only talk about the beer?
So the answer is because most of the other items were done as pernit. Look what it is, grinding. It was, the other one was cutting wood.
You can never have enough beer, that's my rule. No, I don't mean to be.
No, beer was canted, it was tanked, it was closed. You could store it.
But you can never have enough.
I got it.
I'm not saying it's sarcastic. I mean it seriously. People in their minds.
Probably part of Simchas Shantav.
People drank it. It's like.
But you can't. No, but in the society that we live in, they didn't grind far ahead of time.
No. Right.
It would blow away. It would get moldy. It would get wet. The same thing. They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't cut wood probably. Wood would get wet. Wood would get molded until whatever it was as per need. But beer you could lay ahead for a day that you needed. Okay, so you can't be marim. So the Gemara says. Which means you got to be honest about that you need the beer, and if you make more beer than you need, that's okay. Okay, even though you have an overrun is okay, but you really have to believe that you're doing it because you need it. So the Gemara says Raminhi, but we have a brayso that says Matil and Shecha b'moed l'tzarach hamoed v'shlo l'tzarach hamoed asar, that you can make beer for yant for chalamoed, but you can't make it for not chalamoed. Echad shecher tmar v'echad shecher sa'orim, whether it's tmarim date beer or regular malted barley beer, right? V'afi sheyesh lo yashan, and even though you already have beer that's already stockpiled away, marim v'shotim menachadash, you can make new beer and drink the new beer. So this second brayta says you can be marim. First brayta says you can't. You got to be honest to yourself.
Second one says no. Archie, you never have enough beer. Archie, this ain't just agreeing with you. They say what you have.
Someone told me Hilchos about the whiskeys and wine and
maybe this is where he took
Someone said to me once, just a teacher, I don't say who, said, as my students say, don't mess with my beer, don't mess with my booze, but don't mess with my other whatever, right? So when it comes to certain things, they're like the Sacre said, don't mess with my booze, don't mess with my beer.
There you go.
It's like you know what I mean?
The Gemara agrees with you.
Yeah,
they are. So.
Don't mess with beer. As a son.
That's what he said.
So the Gemara answers. So wait. One brayso says, what's the difference between two braysos? One brayso says you can't be marim, you can't drink, and the second one says you can. So where's Tanai? It's machlokas Tanaim, the Tanya, and here's the Tanaim. Ein marimim bekach. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, marimim. So here he's saying the very same brayso, you have one opinion says you can't trick it, and the second opinion says you can trick it.
It's interesting because it's the exact opposite of what you would have thought the positions they would take, maybe.
Right. Good.
Right?
Now, we have time for one more case. This is another case of harvesting grain. And here's a case where the guy was actually hungry. It's a famous Amora. Okay? Not every Amora had financial riches.
No.
Rav, the famous Rav. Rav chatzle chatzta b'chol moada. Same case. Rav, they harvested for him on a chalamoed. Shama Shmuel, his counterpart Shmuel, heard ikbid, and he got angry. So the Gemara says, Lema Shmuel ki chidas svirale. Does Shmuel therefore hold like this opinion we learned before?
Right.
Remember they asked Rav Huna, how come you did it? He says, that's an Yeshidas Yechida says you can't harvest for Hefsid Meruba. I don't follow that. So you mean Shmuel does follow that? Lema Shmuel ki chidas svirale. So Gemara says, no. Shmuel does not agree to that. And really, therefore, you can really harvest, you can harvest if it's a loss.
Right.
However, what if it's not a loss?
Loss of life.
Loss of life?
He's starving.
So that's what Gemara's answer is going to be.
Sorry.
Gemara says, Lo, chatzta dechita hava. It was a field of wheat, and the lo have pasid, which didn't deteriorate quickly. In the case of Rav Huna, probably was a type of grain that if you didn't get to it quickly, it would break down. Let's say barley. This was wheat. Wheat had a longer life on the grain, on the field. So therefore, that's why Shmuel was upset, because Shmuel said it was not a davar avod, it was not a hefsid. So what about Rav? So how come Rav did it? Rav my time avod hachi. So Rav, why did he do it? The Gemara says, Ein lo ma yochal have. He had nothing to eat. He was at the end of his rope. Okay?
Shmuel didn't bring him any food.
And Shmuel lo simur kameh. And Shmuel did not know this. No, they didn't tell him a story. They didn't tell him the end of the story that Rav did this because he actually had nothing else in the pantry. Okay? By the way, it doesn't mean that he was starving. It means that he was counting on that to harvest that for his Yontif, right? So Shmuel didn't know he was starving, or that's all he had, and Rav did, and therefore Rav did it. So that's why Rav thought it was permissible, why Shmuel thought it was not permissible. So Inami, second reason why Shmuel did not agree with Rav doing it, even though Rav had nothing else to eat. Adam Chashav Shani. Okay, that an Adam Chashav, a person of renown, such as Rav, he's different. Even if he has nothing to eat, he has to be careful what he does, because people will learn the lesson for him. And in fact, we will have a story at the end, right before the next Mishnah, where Rav Yanai had a field, and it became ripe just at Chol Moed. And so he harvested it. Because if he wouldn't, it would have come to Hefsid Merubah. Everybody saw the Rav Yanai harvested. The next year, what did they all do? They all waited for Chol Moed. They could have harvested it right before Yontif, but they waited for Chol Moed. They figured he did it, it's the right thing to do, and Rav Yanai saw that, and he actually was mafkir his field, because he realized what people were learning from him. So Shmuel's response, or the Gemara's response here, therefore, is that the case here of Rav and Shmuel is, even though really a person has nothing to eat, it should be okay. And that's why Shmuel felt that Rav is not Adam Chashav. Adam Chashav has to set the bar higher, and therefore, even so, he shouldn't be able to harvest on Chol Moed. Okay, and that's probably going to take us up to here because it's a bit of a long story here. Okay. All right. Right, because the story talks about carrying a ring on Shabbos, and it deals with cooking and so forth. Okay.
Right.
Okay. So that takes us here. All right.
Don't mess with my boots.